This month, we'll talk about tips to stay on track during the holidays. This is a time of year when many of us will be celebrating special occasions with foods that are as delicious as they are nostalgic. It can, however, be challenging to stay on track with back-to-back-to-back social gatherings. This month's nutrition video will discuss ideas to help you enjoy the socialness of the season without going overboard. So first, let's take a look at what a typical intake could look like at a holiday party. We have a plate of appetizers, not really too large in size, a little bit of a few different things we want to try out. That takes us to about 400 calories. Then we have our main meal, which has cornbread, candied sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, a glass of wine, cranberry sauce, some turkey with gravy, stuffing, and of course mashed potatoes. That meal right there takes us to over 1,400 calories, and of course we want to have some dessert to top off the meal. And let's say we did choose just one between the pumpkin pie, the apple pie with ice cream, and the pecan pie. I took an average out of those three, and if you're doing the math, that takes us to about 2,300 calories, which is, for some people, the amount of calories you would want in an entire day. Now, if we do this once or twice out of the year, that's not a big deal, but many of us find our social calendars get pretty busy during the holiday season, so we may be doing this more and more often than we would like. So then let's talk about the tips to stay on track during the holidays. I put together a top 10 list to help you out here. We'll go through them first, and then we'll talk about each one in more detail. The first one is have a game plan. Next, have healthier options available if possible. Truly savor and enjoy the decadent foods that will be available. Eat a little lighter, but don't skip meals. Number 5 is to remember to stay hydrated. Number 6, this can also be a great time to practice being mindful. 7, if you're not familiar with this, I'll introduce you to the hunger awareness scale and how this can be really helpful during social gatherings. 8 is the plate model and using a smaller plate, typically 8 to 9 inches in diameter. Number 9, move away from the food when you're done eating. And number 10, to also remember to focus on other important parts of the holidays. So first, to have a game plan. This could be for the entire holiday season to help you prioritize the things that are the most important to you, and so you don't end up feeling just overextended and exhausted from trying to do too much. This could also be a weekly plan or even a daily plan. You know, if you have an event that you're going to, try not to undereat before, try to think about what you want your plate to look like when you're there, how you want the event to go. So any type of visualization can help with planning ahead and staying on track. And number 2 is to try to have healthier options if available. Sometimes you may be at a party where you didn't bring anything and everything is provided. So during those times you may want to use some of the other tips. Otherwise, if it's something where you bring a dish or a potluck, these are some really fun things to try out. So we have a couple of different Christmas trees. This one has mostly veggies and some pretzels. This one right here has some fruit and cheese, very festive. I love the snowman veggie platter, has some dip up here and then lots of different types of colorful vegetables. And this one is just too cute. We have some Grinch little fruit kebabs with a marshmallow on top, a strawberry for the hat, banana, and then a green grape. So eating healthy and staying on track with our fruits and veggies can be really fun and festive as well. The next tip is to truly savor and enjoy the decadent foods available. Here I chose to use pictures of kids and children eating because I think they are some of the best examples of really enjoying their food, using their different senses, taste, smell, oftentimes touch. To us it looks like they're playing with their food, which they are, but they're also really enjoying it and getting the full experience with eating different foods. Tip number 4 is to eat a little lighter throughout the day if you know that you're going to be attending a party, but not to skip meals and not to show up completely starving hungry. This will make even more sense when we talk about the hunger awareness scale in a little bit. So here are some pretty balanced examples of what a lighter breakfast could be. We have some toast with peanut butter, some bananas, some fruit. Here, an egg sandwich with some veggies, an English muffin with some more fruit, and a hard-boiled egg to give you some protein. Or if you want just a nice warm meal, we have oatmeal with cut up fruit, dried fruit, and some nuts on there. I'd even put a little bit of cinnamon to make it taste really yummy. So those are some examples of what a lighter, balanced breakfast could look like. The next strategy is to remember to stay hydrated. And if you can do this with no or low calorie beverages, even better, to help save some room for some of the other foods that you might be eating this time of year. So here we have pictured some of the water bottles where you can infuse your own flavor in there. So you could do fruits. Some people will do things like mint or ginger. You can get really, really creative with these infusions for water. Or club soda or seltzer waters are becoming even more popular. Most of these are flavored with just the essence of what they're using for the flavor, so that also does not provide any additional calories, but gives it a little bit more taste and keeps it interesting than just plain old water. So those are some options that you may want to BYOB with you if you're going to a party. This could also be a great time to practice mindfulness. So some things like sitting down at the table to eat rather than eating around a buffet or maybe the appetizer table where we don't necessarily realize how much we're eating and feel as satisfied off of those types of calories. To cut our food into bite-sized pieces and to set our silverware down in between bites also helps us stay mindful. To chew our food well, this can help us gauge, are we still hungry? Do we need a little bit more food? Or are we reaching the point of satisfaction? And also another way to be very simple and practice mindfulness is to take some deep breaths. This could be in between bites, before going back for seconds, before deciding how large of a piece of dessert that you want. So again, mindfulness can be very simple in practice, but it can be very beneficial in the long run in types of situations like this. And here is the hunger awareness scale that I mentioned earlier. So this is something I use myself and with clients year round. It's a 1 to 10 number scale. Each number has a definition of what that could feel like. So down here in the yellow range, this is the extreme hunger range. We've let ourselves get too hungry. We're not comfortable. Oftentimes when we get down to this level, we end up overeating, eating things we didn't intend to, not making really the healthiest choices. So I call this the hunger danger zone. Oftentimes we also catapult ourselves over here into the extreme overly full section if we let ourselves get too hungry. So as oftentimes as we can stay within the neutral zone, so that is about a 3 to a 7, 3 being I feel hungry and the urge to eat is strong. I usually like to tell people this is the time where the food is making its way into your mouth. You've already planned that you're going to eat and you're hungry, and this is a good place to be to start eating a meal. 4 or 5, more neutral. A 6, the definition there is that you sense food is in your belly. You could eat more. This often is the place that if you're trying to lose weight, you want to try to notice where you are in a meal when you start to feel this. If you can stop at this point or even pause and maybe just eat a little bit more, that can be really beneficial for long-term weight management. Next, 7, hunger is gone. So you'll notice oftentimes we say, I eat until I'm full. This is kind of a different way to think about it. Rather than being full, your hunger is no longer there. If you stop here, you may not feel hungry again for another 3 to 4 hours. So if you're not necessarily trying to lose weight, but you're trying to meet your nutritional needs, maintain weight, this is usually where you want to try to stop, end a meal. Remember, it does take some time for the messages to pass back and forth between the stomach and the brain that we've had enough to eat. So you do need to eat slowly and be kind of patient here. We want to try to prevent ourselves from getting to the 8, 9, or 10 numbers very often. Occasionally we may all do this from time to time, but if we find that every time we finish a meal, we're feeling uncomfortably full, we may want to rethink that. So this is a tool. I use this with people of all ages. Even kids really have a great understanding of the hunger awareness scale. So usually what I'll have people do is kind of check in with themselves throughout the day, check in before a meal, at kind of a midway point in the meal, and then towards the end of the meal, and see where do you tend to lie on the hunger awareness scale. So kind of a different way of thinking about managing our weight, not so much a diet, but more the intuitive eating type of style. So that may be something that you find really helpful. Next up is the plate model and plate size. Again, these may seem like small things to try out, not really big changes that could have a very effective long-term impact on our health and our weight management. So here in the United States, we kind of got rid of the food guide pyramid and we switched some of the nutrition guidelines over to more of the plate model, which is try to fill about half of your plate with non-starchy vegetables. We have those pictured here. Approximately a quarter of the plate with a grain or a starch, and then the other quarter of the plate with some protein. And then we also want to try to keep that plate to about 8 to 9 inches in diameter. And if it's helpful to kind of gauge that, since most of us are not carrying around a ruler or a tape measure with us when we're eating, is to think about a piece of paper, an 8.5 by 11 standard sheet of paper. That is the width of the plate that we're aiming for. Here we have 2 examples of what a holiday meal could look like. And what I thought was really significant is these are the same size plates. When you look at these plates, they both look like a pretty full plate. But then when you take a closer look, you can see this one has a lot more of the rich, very heavy on the carbs, the fat, fried dressings, very calorie heavy here. Where this one, we did still take a little bit of different foods, but we stuck more to the plate model. So it is about half veggies, some grains and starches, and then our protein with a little bit of the fat there, not too much. And you can see what a huge difference this makes is this plate over here on the left side is about 2,400 calories, again, more than what most of us would want in a day, unless we're really active, then our calorie needs would be higher. Where over here, this plate only has about 640 calories, so just about a quarter, 25% of the amount of calories as pictured over here on this plate, with still having, as you can see, a pretty balanced, full meal. And then if you want to compare even more of the different nutrients in this, the plate on the left, like we said, has about 4 times as many calories. It has about 4 times as much fat. It has 8.5 times as much saturated fat, which is the type of fat that is not healthy for our hearts and can increase the unhealthy type of cholesterol. It has 3.5 times the amount of carbohydrates, twice as much sugar, again, more protein than most of us need in a day, and it has 5 times the amount of salt or sodium. So still can have a full plate, but can keep it way more into balance with our healthy overall plans. Tip number 9, and I kind of laugh when I say this one, but if you think about it, it could be extremely beneficial, is to move away from the food. When the mealtime has ended, try to engage in some other type of activity that is entertaining and fun. Oftentimes what can happen is we do okay during the meal, but it's packing up the leftovers, snacking after, desserts, where we may have just as many if not more calories. So things like playing a board game, playing with the family or a pet, singing, playing an instrument, going for a walk outside, playing an active video game can be a fun group activity. And then the last one, tip number 10, is to remember to focus on the other important parts of the holidays. We know that we are getting together to show gratitude and thanks, but to really make that meaningful. Take time to be thankful for the people in our lives that mean the most to us. Some people will do a gratitude journal or maybe take note of the different things that they're thankful for. So while the food is part of the social gathering, it doesn't have to be the only thing that we pay attention to. So again, here's our top 10 list of ways to help stay on track during the holiday season. Some of these you may already be doing, and I would recommend picking maybe 1 or 2 things that you want to make your priority and try these out and see how they go for you. And hope you have a great holiday season.